Hey guys, tonight I'm joined by U.S. Army Ranger Captain and qualified paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne who served 2 tours in Iraq and was awarded the Bronze Star for his actions in combat, Mr. Joe Sacchetti. Joe was the track coach at my former high school, Cardinal O'Hara, and he grew up in Yeadon, which is the same town that my father grew up in. He now runs the global channel sales for a software startup and recently published a book on Veterans Day titled Guts, Smarts, and Love Live Your Life the Army Ranger Way. Thanks for joining me today, Joe, and how are you doing?
Sean, I'm happy to be here, and I see your name and picture popping up all over the place. You're doing great stuff with Philly sports, which is the best town in the U.S. for sports, don't you think? It's great to be from Philadelphia.
Yeah, 100%. Appreciate it. So, first up here, in the book, you say that you have visited over 130 countries and learned to communicate in 6 different languages. With that said, what were some unique sports that stood out to you, and how are they different from American sports?
Well, I love sports all over the world, and when I was in Haiti, actually on a mission, we played soccer, and it's a way of life, in most of the world. And we play a little bit of soccer in the U.S. And Americans are great sports people. We have a lot of different sports. We probably have more sports than more varied sports than most other countries have. A lot of them play soccer, but man, they live it crazy. And we were down in Haiti. There was a bunch of us grown men, and we walked out into a field. It was like this little dirt field, and these kids were kicking around a soccer ball, and it was barely even fully inflated. And they're like, "Oh yeah, you want to come over here and play with us?" And we thought we were going to have like an easy time. And these little kids, I mean, they ran us right past us. And they didn't have nets, but they put like a foot high stick in the ground, 2 of them, only about like a width of a human. And the kids no one played goalie. You just had to kick it through there. And these guys were good. I mean, the ball control for like 8 and 12-year-old kids was ridiculous. So that was soccer. And then when I was in New Zealand, that's one of those British countries that plays cricket. And I went down there with some buddies, and they're like, "Oh, let's invite the American to play cricket." And they let me get up to bat, and immediately they started, laughing because I wanted to pick that bat up and like swing it a little bit, but they call it a wicket, and you hold it down on the ground. It's super heavy, and all you're really trying to do is be defensive because the bowler, their pitcher's called a bowler. He's trying to throw it past you and knock the little twigs off the stick behind you. So you're defensively doing it. And, I was terrible at it, but it was fun. So it is really great to see the sports in the different places in the world.
Yeah, those are 2 great stories you had there. And keeping that in mind, how did sports play a role in your life as an Army Ranger on base and, spending your time involving sports with the other Army Rangers?
Well, that sports and athletic contests are really, they come from the military from thousands of years ago. And you're great elite soldiers. And I think your audience knows a little bit about Army Rangers. There's 5 elite forces in the military. 3 of them belong to the Army: the Green Berets, the Delta Force, and the Rangers. And so you guys that just live for sports. So we worked out every day. There's weights and stuff like that. But when we were deployed over in the desert, we got our hands on we made nets. And of course, it was sand. So the only thing we needed was volleyballs. And believe it or not, we wrote back home to get some volleyballs. And once we did, we were playing vicious volleyball every day, every chance we got. And one of the guys wrote home for a football, and his mom sent over a football and about 10 of those little orange cones, so we could line a field out. And we played tackle football in the sand without boots on.
Wow.
The guys got tore up, but it was so fun. And you got, some of the world's best athletes are in the military. These guys can swim, run. So when I was in the military, of course, those were fun sports, but I boxed. I was on the U.S. Army boxing team. That was amazing at Fort Bragg. I had I had about 15 fights while I was in the Army, and then I went on to have a total of about 75 fights altogether. So I was a welterweight boxer in junior middle and middleweight in the Army. Then I went and grabbed some light heavy and even a couple of no weight tough man contests back in the 90s. That was a lot of fun. And I ran track for Fort Benning during the spring track and field games, and back in '89, I got a bronze medal. So that was pretty cool. Love sports.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Great stories you had there. Seems like you were a tremendous athlete. And what was it like escorting the Olympic torch through your Pennsylvania hometown in 1980 on the way to Lake Placid?
All right, let me ask you a question, Sean. Do you remember? I mean, I know you weren't alive then, but do you remember what the big story of the 1980 Olympics was? Lake Placid, New York, hockey, Americans versus the Russians.
Right. Yeah.
Have you seen the movie Miracle on Ice?
Yeah, I've seen parts of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the greatest hockey game ever played, and where the Americans beat the Soviets, who, by the way, had played them the day before the torch came through our hometown. The Americans played the Soviets in an exhibition and lost 10-0, and so no one could beat the Soviets. And so it was one of the greatest games ever. But people may not realize this, but the Olympic torch is lit all the time. Did you know that? It's always lit 24 hours a day, all year long in Athens, Greece. It's at Olympic Stadium. I went to visit a few years ago. And so when the Olympics is going to be somewhere else, they get a torch and they light it and they carry it all the way to the next Olympics. And so they lit the torch in 1980. They brought it to a ship out of Athens, Greece, sailed across the Atlantic Ocean, landed in Newport News, Virginia, and then they ran it from Newport News all the way up to Lake Placid. It's like 500 miles. And so they mapped out a route, and every hometown it went through, they left it up to the people in the town to allow someone to run it a mile each. And so I grew up in Yeadon, same town as your dad, and we loved Yeadon. And the torch came right through our town. And so they picked two runners because we had a small town, so we got 2 miles. And my mom and I, we went to the mayor's house. I was a captain of the cross country team. I was a senior in high school, and the mayor, he didn't know that cross country was a sport. I'm sure he knew track and field was a sport, but I went over there with my jacket, and the jacket said cross country on the back, and the mayor thought, "Oh, look at that! That's so cool! You have a jacket that says cross country," as if like I made it for the torch thing, but that was actually a sport. And I was the captain of the team. I was at least a pretty decent runner. And so I got chosen to escort the Olympic torch. It was amazing. It came from the next town. The guy had it, and all you're thinking is like, I can run a mile, no problem. I just don't want to trip and fall. I mean, can you imagine, And so it was this amazing moment. Adidas sponsored us and gave us running outfit, like a tracksuit. And it was a simple blue suit. Your dad will remember that Adidas used to have 3 stripes back in the old retro, and it just had one simple little torch right there. It was the greatest souvenir ever. And then 10 days later, the Americans beat the Soviets.
Wow, yeah, that's a phenomenal experience you had there. And going back to track, what does it mean to you to be a 2-time USA Masters track and field All-American in the half mile, and how were you able to accomplish this?
Being an All-American is the greatest feat that athletes can achieve, and we mostly associate it with high schoolers and college, collegians. And you have to be super good. You have to be top 6 in the United States in any one event, or top 6 in college in any one event. So it's super awesome. The world record for the half mile. Take a guess. What do you think it is?
I would have to say 2-3 minutes.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, just under 2 minutes. It's a minute 40, or more or less. I mean, it's always changing. It was like a minute 43 a couple years ago. Then it's down. I mean, it's sick. Think of a 4-minute mile, then cut that in half to 2 minutes, and then they're running that much better than that because they only have to run half of it. So it's like a minute 40. So that's the world record. And then so every year, collegians will run something like a minute 46, a minute 47. Those are sick times, and they get to be All-American. Well, a couple years ago, I ran 2:11, 2 minutes and 11 seconds. And the key is that I'm 55, or I was 55 when I ran it. Now I'm 57, and the key for everybody is just keep on getting better. Because when I was in high school in those really good years, I got to about 155, and that was fine. It was pretty good, but I just kept going. I hadn't peaked yet, so when we ran it together at O'Hara, I was run with the kids, and I love being out there with you guys. Just keep on working. So if you keep working, you keep getting better and better. And a lot of guys that were good, they just kind of fall off, But an Army Ranger mentality means that you just never quit, you never surrender. And so years later, we're still running pretty good. And of course, God blesses you with some wheels. Some guys get better at long distance, and some guys keep their wheels. I'm lucky that I got a little bit of speed left. So I hit All-American at the age of 53, and then again at 55.
Yeah, that's great. Now the times are coming back to me. I remember, what people would run the 800. So yeah, that's great right there. So going on to the next question, how did the leadership skills that you learned as an Army Ranger translate to being a track and field coach for Cardinal O'Hara High School and in business?
There's two things that you learn from being an Army Ranger or being a Navy SEAL, or any elite military, is that you never quit personally, and you're never giving in, and times are going to get tough, and you expect pain, because if everything was easy, life wouldn't have its rewards, and so you're going to expect pain. And some people realize that this is not the time to give up. This is the time to push back even further. You push into this white hot sense of pain, like you're on fire from the inside out, and you learn to embrace that feeling. So that's number one. That's how you personally get better. But you also realize that other people are depending on you. If I'm the quarterback, there's no way I can have a great rating or be a successful quarterback without my receivers and without my offensive line that's blocking for me. So you realize you're part of a team. So you got to give it all so that you can help your guys and they help you back. And so that all translates into being a coach, I think, because two, didn't you notice, which of your teammates were out there giving it a good try, when you were out there running 400 repeats on the track, who the guys were that were hard trying. You also noticed that who were the role models out there, and who also cared about you guys doing well, or somebody else. So it's not just caring about yourself; it's caring about for the team. If you got both of those things together, that's going to land you towards coaching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an excellent mindset. As a graduate of the MIT Sloan School of Business Executive Education Program, how has this guided you in your 30 plus years of sales and management?
Every Army Ranger or Navy SEAL or SF guy got there because they wanted to be with the best. And most guys would tell you, I want to be the best. I want to be with the best. Surrounding yourself with these great people, like you did. I mean, you were part of a high school track team that was one of the best in the state, and of course, we also were 5 state championships within your era, and 1 national championship. You just want to be out there with the best there is. And so the same mindset that takes you to want to jump out of planes and get on the ground and get some to be out there with your country and your mates keeps going years later. So years later, I wanted to go to graduate school, and I just wanted to be surrounding myself with the best again. So MIT is like the Army Rangers, of college. They're pretty bad, and they're smart dudes up there. And the cool thing was that they realized that guys who had been in business for 20 years and were combat veterans might have a little something to offer to the normal group of folks that were typically attending MIT. So I thank them for letting me join.
Yeah, that's awesome. You coached the 2014 indoor track high school national champions at Cardinal O'Hara High School, which you mentioned. Keeping that in mind, what was your favorite memory spent with the O'Hara track team as a coach?
It's going to be hard to top winning a national championship as a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll take you to that moment. We won the national championship for the DMR, the distance medley relay. It's the toughest event in track. It's brutal. It's 4 guys on the track, and one runs a quarter mile, and another guy runs a half a mile, another guy runs 3/4 of a mile, and then the last guy runs a mile, right? So not only are there four guys, but they're all, those are different events, right, Sean? Like you can run the 400, that's a fast event. Then the 800 guy, he's got to be like this class athlete. The mile guy is your distance guy, and then the only time anyone ever runs the 3/4 mile race, it's not an event that's run. The only time you run it is in the DMR, and so you have to have four guys that are all running. Okay, fine, four different events. And then to be on that stage, to ever even think about competing to like be a state champion, and then you go beyond state championships to the national championship. You've got 12 teams on the track in New York City with thousands of people watching on a bank track. It's sick, the excitement that builds up. And in order to compete, all four of those guys have to run the best race of their lives, not just in the same year, but on the same day in the same race. And then maybe you have a shot of winning. And when our guys did that, it was just this unbelievable moment. And we weren't expected to win. And our you know, our anchor leg ran 4 minutes and 10-second mile just to cap it off. And so that was like one of the greatest moments ever. And it's right up there with cross country when conditions couldn't have been any more different. We were out on a muddy, wet field in Portland, Oregon at Nike Nationals. And we were a team from Philadelphia. And it rained so hard that there was mud, maybe like 8 inches deep. And the day before, 3 guys had lost their shoes stuck in the mud. Like they didn't even come out. Wow. And so we went out and got duct tape and we taped up our shoes. I taped them around their ankles and taped them extra. And it's something you would never do in track. Can you imagine like taping yourself like that? Like you could barely move, but you know the power of like mud sucking your shoe right off. And you're done if that happens. Your race is over. So we were just determined that wasn't going to happen. And somehow our guys who were really good, they realized, wow, man, we're so prepared. We're ready to go into battle. There's nothing that can defeat us. And we finished 5th in the nation that day, and we're all American. That was one of the happiest moments I ever had in my coaching life. Me and one of the dads, we were, someone got a picture of it. We were hugging and jumping up and down and spinning in circles all at the same time. We were that happy.
That's fantastic. Seems like a really cool memory that you had. Going back to the countries that you've been to, like I mentioned, 130 plus. What is your favorite one that you have visited so far?
I got to come to Italy, even though Zurich, Switzerland is behind me. Western Europe is great, and Italy is just the best country ever because there's so many experiences. There's like 5 different Italys when you go there. You know, there's Rome in the south, and there's the mountains in the north. There's Tuscany for wine and stuff like that. And you can go to the beaches on the Adriatic or even down to Sicily. But it never disappoints you. I mean, there's no Italian word, Sean, for bad meal. That word does not exist in Italy because every meal is amazing. The pizza and the pasta and all the stuff. And they love when you visit there. So have you been there yet?
No, I have not yet. My mom has though, so hopefully I'll be going in the coming years.
Have you left the United States yet?
Yes, I have.
All right, where have you been?
Yeah, I've been to Canada and Mexico.
Okay, good choices. That's when I was in college, that's where I went, to Canada and Mexico. Skiing in Canada and to Cancun for a break. Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Yeah, great places right there. So in the book that you wrote, that the nature of rangerhood is leading the self beyond the breaking point. You also mentioned earlier never quitting and never surrendering, which embodies your way of life. Can you go into detail about this nature of rangerhood mentality and how you accomplished doing this throughout your lifetime?
I'm impressed that you picked that passage out because that's very insightful for young people like yourself. The nature of rangerhood also is like the nature of brotherhood or being a teammate. So all of your sports listeners are going to get this. I mean, if you're one of 11 men on the football field or 5 on the basketball team, you're going to get it. I mean, you live and die with these folks. And rangerhood means that a group of guys become one entity, and you know the moves they're going to make. And things you do on the battlefield aren't that different from sports. You have folks with different specialties, and you come to rely on somebody to do their job so that you can do your job. I mean, if I'm the second baseman, I can't finish off the double play until a shortstop scoops up the ball and gives me a nice throw across the bag that I can step over and throw it, right? So you're totally dependent on the rest of your guys, and your team begins to function like one. And that's the nature of Rangerhood.
That's phenomenal. What life lesson that you learned with the Army has stuck with you and served as a piece of advice when tackling life's challenges today?
You're going to get to this place at some point in your life, Sean. Most people are. And it's going to be a critical moment. And people are going to come to rely on you, or people are going to rely on somebody who's going to step forward. There's going to be a time when people are in trouble, and the outlook is bleak, and you're not sure if you're going to make it out alive. And it's at that moment that human nature and people that are afraid and they're weak, they're going to look to a leader, someone to get him out of it alive. And I've seen it happen. It happens many times. And then at that moment, you can be the one that's in the group, hoping that someone's going to save you, or you can be the guy that takes charge and gets everyone out of that situation. Be that guy who takes charge.
Thank you. That's great advice. And as a former coach, what mentor or coach had a major influence on your life and possibly played a factor in you joining the Army?
Colonel Jim McCluskey was my mentor in the Army. I knew him when I was at LaSalle. He was a Vietnam vet, and Vietnam was just something that sounded mythical, right? Like this place that, all these crazy things were happening. And I was in college in the 80s, and we hadn't had any armed conflict for a time. And he was a bigger than life character, a colonel, was airborne, Vietnam vet. And I thought, my gosh, man, this guy. And he also was a great athlete. He went to LaSalle. He went to LaSalle High School and LaSalle College. Great athlete, solid dude, big, rough, tough. I mean, it's like just a magnetic personality. And he said, I want to be like this guy. He also didn't take any guff at all, and couldn't stand mediocrity. Like if you knew you could, get 3 more push-ups and you didn't, it would be like, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you just kill yourself and run 2 seconds faster in that mile, or whatever, grab that rebound when you could have. And so I synced up with that kind of personality. It was like, take no prisoners and be the best. So he was my mentor.
That's awesome. And so now I have some fun questions, or quick fire style questions. So the first one I have here: as a runner, what athlete did you look up to the most when you were younger?
Favorite baseball player, Larry Boa. Favorite basketball player, Dr. J. Favorite hockey player, Bobby Clark. Favorite football player, Bill Berge. He was the linebacker for the Eagles back in the 70s.
Awesome. Excellent choices right there. How many consecutive push-ups can you do, being former Army Ranger?
When I was in the Army, when I was at LaSalle, we had push-up competition, and if you hit 90, you could go on and compete. So for the Army PT test, that's where you get 2 minutes, and you have to do 2 minutes of push-ups, 2 minutes of sit-ups, and a 2-mile run. 72 is the standard to get 100 points. So 72 is good. Then at 90 you could go on. So when I was in college, I got to 119 in 2 minutes. And then when I got down to Fort Bragg, I could do 126, and I was taking on anybody that would, that wanted to challenge. And so those are pretty good. Now I can still get 80 now. I make sure that I can max the PT test as it is. Those numbers that I gave you, that's what if you're 18 to 25 years old, that's like the hardest, the hardest group, the youngest guys. There are actual standards for what you do, what you can do over 50. Like I only need to do like 42 push-ups in 2 minutes. But if I'm taking a test, I make sure I max it for the young guys. So I can still get to 80. How are you doing on your push-ups?
Pretty good. I've been doing, at least 100 push-ups a day. As for
Nice.
Consecutively, somewhere between 25 and 30 is where I'm at now.
Okay, well, check this out now.
Yeah.
So when that number I gave you was Army style, so you're allowed to push up as long as you don't break, you can stay. So you can do your 25 or 30, then take a break. So I always like to, extend my arms out,
Yep.
and you catch a breath. You catch it for 5 seconds, because if they give you 2 minutes, that's an eternity. Because you get your opening set at 25 push-ups. That only takes you like 20 seconds. And you just want to make sure you recover and then boom, you can knock out sets of 10 and keep driving all the way to like 80 or 90.
Yeah, for sure. Going to the next question, what is your favorite cheesesteak in the city if you had to pick one?
Every time someone comes to visit from another city or another country, like my buddy from London, who was he did like a podcast. Um, he wanted to see cheesesteaks in Philly, so I always take people to Pat's and Gino's because we have to visit there, and they're fine. We usually get one from one and one from the other, split it, and then we've had our taste. But best cheesesteak, I'll go to D'Alessandro's in Manayunk.
Awesome. Yeah, that's my choice too. So glad we're on the same page there.
Okay, there's a lot of good ones. Max's is good,
Yeah.
and Master Cola in Conshohocken was really awesome. And I think they morphed more into roast pork sandwiches. But when they first came out, they did a chicken cheesesteak that was the best, because they took real chicken breast and just chopped it down into nice cubes. So it was actually good quality meat. And I can't help it, but I like to put mayo on my cheesesteak. I'm sorry, it's not healthy, but I always figure I'll just run a couple extra miles.
Gotcha. There you go. And the last one I have here for this interview, what is your favorite tourist attraction in the world and in Philadelphia?
In the world, the Roman Colosseum. There's nothing better for an athlete than to imagine playing on that field. Of course, if you were in that field, there's a chance you were a gladiator and you might get eaten by a lion or killed by another fighter. But still, imagine that you're in a stadium which everyone loves to play in, and this stadium is like 2,000 years old because it was built in 70 A.D. And like the greatest athletes in the world, the greatest sports events ever took place there. In Philly, you can't beat the Liberty Bell area because people love the juice that you get from down there. And you can see the Liberty Bell. You can walk across to Independence Hall. There's plenty of food. You go over to the Bourse or wherever you want and get cool food. It's a good vibe.
That's great. Well, that's all the questions I have. Thank you so much for taking the time, Coach. I really appreciate you coming on, and thank you for all your service.
Well, proudly served. And remember, as we say, Sean, Rangers lead the way. And thanks to all your listeners. And I wish you luck. You're doing a heck of a job at Temple, so good luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Go check out Coach Sacchetti's book titled Guts, Smarts, and Love, Live Your Life the Army Ranger Way. That is on sale on Amazon right now, wherever you read your books, Amazon Kindle or the hard copy. So go check that out. Thanks for listening. Stay safe out there and have a wonderful Thanksgiving.